that you're going to grow the domestic economy.
When we
it's all very well saying we're going to cut wage rates and we're going to make products cheaper to export.
When we have an economic upturn with our colleagues across the water in the United Kingdom, within the European Union, the United States, we will benefit from that. Certainly we will benefit from the huge investments and strategies, new strategies that we have set down for our indigenous companies and our foreign direct investment companies.
Well, you see, one of the most significant retail banks that is not Irish-based, that is the Bank of Scotland, Halifax, has just pulled out of retail banking in Ireland, much to the disgust and discontent of small businesses.
But they will still continue to have 850 people working in this country. And I think it's important to differentiate between our national banking situation and, for example, the financial services sector. We have a huge presence of financial services here in this country. There has been very little, if any, impact rising from the economic turbulence of the world on the Irish financial services sector. And that is on the basis of a number of other criteria that need to be said. This still continues to be a good place to do business. We have a high talent pool. There's great flexibility within our workforce. We've seen it on the basis that although people are annoyed about what has happened in the reduction of their salaries, etc., there is a realization by the Irish psyche that we needed to make these decisions in order to have economic growth and new potential, and people are prepared to do that.
But a simple question for you: how high is unemployment going to go? It's almost 13% now.
It's 12.7.
It's the highest it's been for
many years.
15 years.
Yes.
How high is it going to go?
Well, as a positive person, I would like to see it the other way, rightly so.
But it isn't going that way. There are hundreds of jobs going every single day.
The ESRI, who are the independent group who advise the government, would say that they're looking at over 13.5% unemployment.
You see, I've seen economists talking about 14, 15, 16%.
No, 13.5% is what we have guided for within our government expenditure.
Trade union leader David Begg, and of course your government prided itself for a long time on a social partnership with the unions, that you could work with the workforce and that there would be this sort of unified economic approach across business, government and the workforce. He now says there is no plan to save or create jobs, and there's basically no economic stimulus package to boost economic activity. The unions are absolutely opposed to what you're doing.
The unions found themselves in a situation where they had no mandate on behalf of their people to reduce salaries in the public service. And I accept that there's a reality there. Secondly, they were in a position to come up with seismic reform within the public sector, which is something both myself and the Taoiseach Brian Cowan are very anxious that we proceed forward with. As Minister in charge of Industrial Relations, it is difficult that we're working in a vacuum at this moment in time, but I do see an opportunity for a new framework.
You see you're working in a vacuum.
In an industrial relations situation, on the basis that we don't have an overarching national framework at this moment in time, over and above what has been agreed heretofore, which has worked very well.
So your relations with workers across Ireland is broken down?
No, I don't say, no, that is a misinterpretation.
A vacuum, it sounds pretty ominous.
We still continue to have the industrial relations mechanisms that have always worked very well. We do not have a national agreement at this moment in time for reduction in public sector pay. What we do have and what we are working towards is how we can, as a consequence of reform within the public sector, create savings and therefore allow people in a situation whereby the government would have to be forced to reduce their pay further.
Well, you call it a new narrative, and you clearly want to bring the unions and workers on board with your new narrative. But there's a problem, isn't there? And perhaps here's a symbol of it. You told public sector workers they were going to have to take swinging cuts in their salaries, up to 12%. And then you declared that the very top civil servants, the most highly paid public sector workers on more than 130,000 euros a year, about 640 of them, were not going to have to take the same cut. They were going to be cut by perhaps 3 or 5%.
I think it's difficult to explain in a programme like this, but those involved at that level, if we were to continue on the same reduction of salary as others, would have had to take a 27% reduction
in their salaries. Because now you're including their bonuses. Bonuses are discretionary payments. They're nothing to do with salary.
Yes,
I have spoken to people across Ireland who are disgusted that the architects of government policy that's got Ireland in the mess it's in today are now being given a special dispensation to enjoy a much smaller cut in their pay than everybody else.
We have an organisation who looks after public sector, higher paid public servants, an independent review body who indicated to the government at the time that those bonuses were intrinsically part of a person's salary.
So just
now,
like the bankers, these weren't really bonuses at all, they were an expectation, were they?
That the remuneration body did actually propose a number of increases heretofore. All of those have been set down. I think it's important to say that if we wanted to have a 27.5% increase, I don't feel that that would be acceptable on the basis that others were taking between 3, 8 and 10%.
One of your own influential backbenchers, Matty McGrath, called that stand you've just explained to me as to why the top civil servants don't get the same pay cuts. He called it a nonsense. It's anathema to all right-thinking citizens in this country.
When he had the matter explained to him by the Minister of Finance, and he did support the government last night in a discussion.
He said he hadn't changed his mind on the issue.
He may not, but I think he appreciates very much the difficult situation in which the Minister had to work within.
But Minister, you are, in the end, a politician.
Yes.
And would you not accept that there is a very sour mood in this country, perhaps symbolised by an opinion poll I saw in the Sunday newspapers, a quantum poll, question: do you have confidence in this Irish political system to provide answers to our current economic crisis? How many percent, what percentage do you think said no?
If we were...
I don't know if you saw it. What percentage do you think said no to that question?
If we were
76% said no.
Just let's take it. You said I was a politician. You're right. I am a politician. I deal with the realities of people's lives. But I also deal with the reality of the fact that we made unpopular political decisions, not for the benefit of my party or the government, but for the benefit of the future of the people who are coming behind us. If we were not to do that, then I think I would have failed and we would have had a dereliction of duty in the work that we have to do.
But I'll tell you
that
what's
creates
unpopularity.
Unpopularity in reduction in services, reduction in salaries, people finding themselves unemployed. That is the reason why people are disgruntled. However...
Well, with respect, that's not the only reason people are disgruntled. They're also disgruntled because they think there's a basic lack of fairness about who's bearing the pain of Ireland's current problems.
No, I wouldn't
For
agree.
example, you know, while ordinary people, and you've said it yourself, are seeing welfare benefits cut, they're seeing salaries slashed in the public sector and in the private sector, at the very same time they're seeing multiple billions of euros being spent to bail out the banks, and they're seeing some of the biggest fat cat bankers and property developers in this country who are paying no sort of price at all for the terrible decisions they've taken in recent years.
Well, I think you have fallen into the wrong trap in your analysis of what's happening. Firstly, there has been huge change within banking and regulation. Secondly, I am responsible for the Director of Corporate Enforcement, who is an independent man who is carrying out investigations within the banking sector. We also have an inquiry...
The Anglo-Irish Bank, for example,